happy Sunday.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I know.
cut you off
We're
again.
just both so excited to say welcome to Northshore. It's another wonderful Sunday, and we are so excited that you're here. If we haven't had the chance to meet yet, my name is Stephen Bolt.
And I'm Samantha Harmon. Yeah, we are so pumped that you are joining us today, whether you're on our Kirkland campus right now or you're joining us from anywhere in the world online. We are so excited that you're here. And if this is your first time joining us, we have something very easy that you can do right now.
Yep. We, whether you're here in Kirkland or anywhere else, as Sam said, you can pull out your phone, open up the text message app, and type in 97,000 to the sender, and then just text Northshore. And let me tell you what's going to happen.
Was that pretty clear, or was that confusing?
You're going to text Northshore to 97. Thank you, Sam's like, listen, let me bring some clarity to this situation. You're going to text Northshore to 97,000.
Yes.
And what's going to happen is someone from our team is going to connect with you, get to know a little bit more about your story, and answer any questions you have. Maybe it's about the experience today, or just about Northshore overall. It's a really great first step to take if you're ready to get plugged into more of what's happening around here.
Absolutely, yeah. We would love to meet you. But Stephen, it's June 13th.
Yes.
And we've been talking about June 13th for quite some time.
Yeah, so much has happened today. So much is happening right now.
So much is happening.
It's so overwhelming. Number one on my mind of things that are happening are you're watching us at a different time.
Same place, different time.
It is either 9 or 10:30, or you're like, listen, it's like 2 months from now, I'm watching this on YouTube. Nice to meet you. But if you're watching us live, you're joining us at 9 or 10:30 a.m. New service times. It started today. And it will carry on into
the future.
Who knows when. But from now on, 9 and 10:30 a.m. is when we're having services here.
Yeah, we're pumped to be here with you. And we are starting a brand new message series today too. That's the other big thing that's happening. We are starting a series called Stuff Jesus Never Said. Yeah, we're going to be diving into some of like the common phrases or sayings that people think Jesus said or that are in the Bible that actually are not.
For some reason, the first thing when you say stuff Jesus never said, let us know in the chat section too.
Oh yeah, what are some of the
most like when you say that to me, my mind is like, cleanliness is next to godliness. Like, I'm pretty sure Jesus was up on some mountain and he was like, my people, cleanliness is next to godliness. And that will be written in the Bible. Stuff Jesus never said, but apparently some people thought he did.
I know, yeah. That's so funny. I was actually looking up different phrases and different things that people thought Jesus said. That was like a very common one.
Yeah.
So,
I couldn't find that in scripture. I looked.
I couldn't either, but
wasn't there.
It's all good. We're going to be talking about some really great stuff in these coming weeks. So we're really excited about that. But as I was thinking about this new message series, my daughter Lily just learned her first Bible verse, Titus 3:1.
Sweet.
Be ready to do what is good. She says it like 50 times a day. So of course I know it now. But I was just thinking like how fun it's going to be to watch her growing up, learning about Bible stories and Jesus, and like, what is she going to like latch onto? And like, what is going to change in her mind that isn't actually the correct story?
Wasn't real.
So that got me thinking, I wanted to look up some stuff that kids have actually said about the Bible. So I've got a couple for you. So one of them is, the first one is, Noah's wife was called Joan of Arc.
Hey, that's kind of believable.
It is.
I understand, like the logic. I understand the logic. Didn't really happen. But I get it. That's awesome.
So good. The next one, so the offering bucket was being passed, and a 4-year-old said, "You don't have to pay for me, Daddy. I'm under 5."
Hey.
So they know what's up about like
Disneyland,
restaurants.
It's like,
do you have to pay for
Isn't it free Sundays? Free fry Sundays or something? Kids under 5?
Sure.
The other thing about that now is we don't even pass the bucket. So like it's free for everyone.
That's true.
So come on in. No.
I love that. The next one is a child said, "When you get scared, God will bring you your quilt. He said the comforter would come."
Wow. That is really funny.
But also,
Caleb
isn't
liked
that
that one too. We got a smile out of Caleb. That was a good one.
I read that one and I like cringed a little bit because wouldn't you consider that like a pun?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like most would.
That's why I
really
cringed.
Like that.
Caleb's still laughing.
Yes, this is good. This is good. We have like a crew here to bounce these jokes off of. The comforter will come.
Yeah,
I like it.
It's so good. Okay, the next one is, it says, "The Lord thy God is one. but I think he's a lot older than that.
Hey, man, these are getting punnier and punnier, Sam, and I'm real proud.
These kids are good. Okay, this is my favorite. This is my favorite one. Jesus had 12 opossums. The worst one was Judas Asparagus.
Gosh.
Which, if you grew up watching VeggieTales.
Yes. Is that fact in VeggieTales?
I don't know.
Probably.
All of these
Judas
I got
asparagus.
just from a website, from Googling. So hopefully these actually were
That's
said
amazing.
and not just made up.
Also, it turns out one of Jesus's opossums are in my backyard attacking my dog on Saturday nights at 3 a.m. So.
Oh no.
I know, it's a good story. If anyone's got any possum tricks, send them on. Actually,
Pretty sure you've asked for gardening tips or something in the past.
We had moles. We asked for mole tips. This was like in the height of when everything was online and it was just Wild West around here.
Yeah.
Now we're more refined.
We didn't really know what to talk about other than our.
Does anyone have a mole hunting tip? Okay. What was opossum?
So
Jesus
good.
apostles.
We're gonna end on the Judas Asparagus one because that was just too good.
That is a good one, and
Yeah.
I love just kids' minds and
I
they're
know.
just like, yeah, that's fact to them.
It just made me so happy.
Judas
So
asparagus.
I love it.
Okay.
But if you are just joining us, welcome to Northshore. My name is Samantha.
Yeah, it's so good that you're here with us. My name is Stephen Bolt, and this week, as we've been talking about, we're kicking off a brand new series, which we're really excited about. So you picked a great week to join in.
Absolutely. And if you're on our campus right now, you may have noticed that we have a team that is
aroma.
back.
Yes.
And that is the Brew Crew.
Yes.
Baby, they're back.
You smell it before you see it. Brew
So
Crew. That could be on their
good.
t-shirts.
Yes.
Smell me before you see me. Brew Crew. Because that coffee smells good.
Maybe not.
And maybe not.
Yeah.
Sam's like, I really actually don't like that idea.
Our Brew Crew is back making coffee for all of you who are joining us on our campus. When you see them, just say hello and thank you. We are so excited that they're here. This is a great team to jump on and serve as well.
It's
a little segue there.
A little segue. I know. It's one of those things that you're like, oh, there's coffee. That's great. And you don't think about our volunteers who got up at some early hour of the morning to get up and brew it. And there is 1,000 things that happen online to make what you're seeing online happen or here on our campus happen by so many volunteers. And so if you're on that team, just thank you. And as Sam said, I would encourage you, there is just not a greater feeling than being a part of what God is doing here at Northshore. And it's not, oftentimes it's oh, we need you to come volunteer. Honestly, talk to any of the people serving, and I'm sure they'd love to tell you about just the impact it's had on their lives, being able to just be a part of all the incredible life change that's coming out of Northshore.
And we get to do it together.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting. So if you are interested in hopping on a team here at Northshore and serving, you can text my team to 97,000. We would love to connect with you and help you get plugged into a serving team here at Northshore.
Yep. So we're actually going to take a quick look back at last week.
Yes.
We had
Eugene
a guest
Cho.
speaker. Yep. It was an incredible weekend. So we're going to take you back and just show you a little clip of that. And I'd encourage you, if you weren't there, you can jump back, watch it on one of our channels. But here's a clip from last week.
No matter where you are, what you're going through, what we've all collectively experienced, what you've personally experienced, know that our Lord Jesus Christ crucified, Christ risen, He desires to feed you, to nourish you, to replenish you. But hear this isn't just a feel-good, fuzzy breakfast story. Yes, He wants to feed you, but this story, when you read the entirety of John 21, it's a story where Jesus, after He feeds us, He reminds us who we are and who He is and His invitation for us.
Well, it was such an honor to have Eugene Cho back with us last week. So thank you again for coming and for that message. And we are just excited that we get to start a brand new message series this week. Scotty's kicking it off. It's called Stuff Jesus Never Said. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be an incredible week again. We're so excited that you're here with us. We're just about to jump into worship together. So thank you again for joining us, and let's jump in together.
Good to see everyone. Welcome to Northshore. Let's all stand together if you're in this room. Welcome if you're joining us online. Let's worship Jesus together. See him now, the King of heaven, Son of God, enthroned above. Heavy cross upon his shoulders, carried for us, carried for us. See him now, our King surrendered. Final word of perfect love. Hear his cry, Father forgiven, spoken for us, spoken for us. When he said it is finished, oh, our hope had just begun. Let's sing together. The grave has lost its hold. Alive, the stone is gone. Our God reigns forevermore. All praise to him belongs. His life, his name alone. Jesus came, paid it all. Then he Now we rise by his Spirit. In his name we overcome. All our hope in this same power, living in us, living in us. For our sin is defeated. Oh, the war has now been won. The grave has lost its hold. Arise, the stone is gone. Our God reigns forevermore. All praise to him belongs. Live by his name alone. Jesus came, paid it all. Then he rose. Then he rose. These are powerful words we're singing today. Let's open up our hearts to Jesus. Sing, death, lay your weapons down. Death, lay your weapons down, and sin, you're defeated now. The stone was rolled away. Our God reigns. Sing, crown him with many crowns. Oh, crown him with many crowns soon. Every knee will bow. good reminder for us how powerful God is. And hey, we're going to learn a new song this morning. Kiki's going to teach it to us in a second. And this song is really affecting me. I've been leading worship for a really long time and following Jesus for a long time. And I've sung a lot of worship songs. And this one's special. And I'll tell you why. I don't know about you. For some of us in this room who've been following Jesus for a bit, sometimes we can think about passion and enthusiasm for Jesus as maybe a thing in our past. Maybe it's something you experience in youth group, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe you're like, oh, God moved really powerfully here. But perhaps this last season of your faith journey has felt kind of more like a slog or a really long hike that you just have to keep going on. And I just want to encourage us with something today, that if you're feeling numb or if you're feeling dry or if you're feeling wounded, that the Holy Spirit wants to bring passion back into your life right here, right now. And it's not all about feeling, and it's not all about logic, and but it's all of it together. And I think for a lot of us, I'll say again, and I hope this is an encouragement to you, there's no shame in this, but our faith is not designed to be boring, friends. Our faith is not designed to just be a list of rules that we follow. God is alive. God sees us. He loves us. He knows exactly what we need today. So if you need Him to fill you with something, if you're feeling empty, you're in the right spot. You are in the right place today because the Holy Spirit of God, catch this, the creator of time, wants to spend time with you. He wants to spend time with you right now. He has everything you need. So let's be in this posture together where we open up our hearts to Him. And back to the song, this song is like a guide for us. It helps us get back to that place where we're letting go and asking the Spirit of God to work in us again. And so as we learn it, I know we're still catching on and stuff, but just let these words encourage you today. Let these words guide you to that place of surrender where we are ready for the Holy Spirit to move in our life yet again and to bring passion and joy and enthusiasm yet again in this moment.
You're the fire in the morning, you're the cool in the evening, the breath in my soul, all the life in my bones. Now there is no hesitation in your love and affection. It's the sweetest of all. And Lord, I know my heart wants more of you. My heart wants something new, so I surrender all. Come on, let's sing this out. 'Cause all I want is to live within your love, being done by who you are. And my desire is to know you out. I open up my heart to you. I open up my heart to you now. So do what only you can. Oh Jesus, have your way in me now. I open up my heart to you. Oh dear God, I open up my heart to you now. So do what only you can. Oh, we trust you, Jesus. Jesus, have your way in me Come on, every voice, we sing out all by one. All I want is to live within your love, be undone by who you are. My desire is to know you deeper. Lord, I will open up again, throw my fears into the wind. I am desperate for a touch of heaven.
Give God some praise. You are on Instagram. Make it loud. Come on, give God some praise, guys. Yeah. Hey. Well, hey, you guys can take a seat. Welcome to Northshore Church. We're so excited. So glad that you made it out to church here today. My name is David. I'm on the team here, and I'm very excited to just be able to spend this time here with you today. If you were wondering why you were on my Instagram, it's because I want to actually turn your attention to Northshore's Facebook and Instagram page, especially this summer. If you're not already following us, especially this summer, we have a lot of great things prepared for us to just be able to connect with each other, meet some new people and whatnot. And Facebook and Instagram is a great way to stay connected with some upcoming events. So even right now, you can take out your phones. Yes, you can use your phones in church and give us a little follow there on Instagram and Facebook. Especially if this is your first time here and if you're new to our church, we're so glad that you have decided to join us here today. And I know that's a big step. I mean, just taking that step to come into a place that you've never been, being here is can be a little bit intimidating, but we want to help you take your next steps here at this church so that you can continue to learn more about this church, about Jesus, and how we can continue to grow in our faith. A good way to do that is actually to text the word Northshore to 97,000. So 97000, just text the word Northshore. There's a little form that you can fill out, and someone from our team would love to get in touch with you this week to help you find some next steps in terms of being connected here at the church. Speaking of new, this is my second week here at Northshore. Super excited. Thank you. Yeah, hey, you do a good enough job. We might hand you a mic next week too, so. But hey, some great things happening here this summer, especially today. We have some food trucks just outside after service, and so be sure to stick around for that. We have a food truck. It's a Mexi-Cuban, all right? Guys, that's like a mix from heaven. Like, that's a gift from God to us. So stick around for that. We also have Soul Bowl, all right? That's Korean barbecue in a bowl. Yeah, you can thank my people for that later, all right? But we're so excited. It's part of a way for us to stay connected during this weekend, this season, and so please stick around for that as well. One of the things that we talk about here at Northshore is being together for our neighbors. And, just recently we were able to actually partner with a good friend from Imprint Church, which Imprint Church is actually, it was a church plant, a church that we started right out of Northshore. And so we have someone that's attending that church, doing some amazing work in our region, and we were able to be a part of that work. So take a quick look at this video.
Gene, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what do you got going on here?
My name is Jean Wu, and I host the Bread Booth. It is a gleaning group. The food is food that we rescue, and so basically it's food that did not sell or did not quite make the cut, like it went through the slicer wrong. And so we rescue the food and we share it with the community.
So it started off with your driveway and a few boxes of bread, and now we're up here in Mill Creek at Venture Church with quite the setup. How many families are you serving, and what has that process looked like?
So we were kind of that secret group for a very long time until the pandemic started. And when the pandemic started, I started getting private messages from different members saying, if there's anything left over, could you let me know? Up to that point, I was just kind of offering what came, right? But after that, it kind of got me thinking like, I have been introduced to all these people for a reason, and now they feel comfortable coming to me, asking me for some extra food. And then word got out. At one point, I think we had like 150 cars driving through my neighborhood. And then the HOA got involved. We talked to Venture Church and they gave us this wonderful space. And so we've been offering food from here since October last year.
Tell us about just how Northshore got involved and what the last couple months has looked like.
We used to go to Northshore before we launched and went with Pastor Darren with Imprint Church. So we have lots of wonderful friends at Northshore, and one of which is Jonathan Wolfgang. And there was a windstorm a couple months ago, and our tents blew over the wall and broke. And I was so like, oh no, it's still raining and we need shelter for our food. And Wolfgang said, Northshore really wants to help you out. We would like to buy you a tent. And I sent him like this cheapy tent, and he was like, oh, that's gonna break again. He was like, how about this? And he sends me a better tent, and I'm like, wow. I was just overwhelmed with the generosity of Northshore.
As a church, we say that we exist for our neighbors, the next generation, and those in need. And when we see people doing things like what you're doing here, that just so echoes the heartbeat of Northshore. And so I know you gave us a little bit of a wish list of some stuff that you need to continue this, which I think was around $1,400, and all that stuff is coming to you.
I'm like so overwhelmed.
And in addition to that, you told us that there was a storage unit that right now you and your husband are paying for out of your pocket. To store food that was getting too much for your garage. And Northshore also wants to pay for that through the rest of this year.
Oh my gosh.
So we are...
Oh, thank you.
We just love what you are doing here.
Thank you so much.
And it is honestly a privilege of ours to even just be a part of it. And I know I speak on behalf of the entire church when I just say thank you for seeing a need in the community and stepping up to take care of it.
Oh man, thank you so much, Northshore. Thank you.
Isn't that incredible? I mean, that's just the work that we are able to do as a church. And a big part of that isn't just Jean doing that by herself. It's each of you being a part of this journey of generosity so that we can make such an impact in our community, especially nowadays where there's so much need. So many of you have stepped up in so many ways, and we just want to say thank you for that. If you haven't joined us on the journey of generosity, I want to just encourage you to join us in that. You can do that by finding us online at northshore.church and give that way. Or also on your way out, we have a giving kiosk where you can drop off your gift. Again, I just want to say thank you for being such an incredibly generous church. I'm actually from I actually started at another church before coming here in the Washington area. And I've been watching you guys from afar and some of the amazing, incredible things that you've been doing locally. I have just been so excited to be able to join this community because of what you are doing and your heart and for believing in the mission of this church. So let me again just say thank you for doing that. Today you're in for a special treat because we have a new message series that we are kicking off with Pastor Scotty Bagg. It's a great message series called Stuff Jesus Never Said. Take a look at the screen.
Well, hey, everybody. Great to see you. Welcome to Northshore Online, the inaugural 10:30 service. We're so glad that you're here, whether you're in this room or you're with us online as we kick off summer at Northshore. Even though it's a bit of January outside, it's summer in here, and we're so glad you're here. God is doing something amazing in this community and in the area around us, so I'm just glad that you're here to be a part of it. If it's your first time with us, maybe your first time at church or your first time in a long time, welcome again. You have picked a great weekend to be here because we're kicking off this series, which is kind of like a set of conversations we have in these services. And this one is called Stuff Jesus Never Said. Because we live in a day where there's a lot of misconceptions about what Jesus said or what he didn't say or what people thought he said. Some of you have heard the saying, God helps those who help themselves. And it sounds spiritual, maybe even biblical, but here's the deal. Jesus never said that. And you won't find that anywhere in your Bible. Here's another one. Maybe you've heard this one. God won't give you more than you can handle. Anyone ever heard that one? Maybe you're going through a hard time and someone kind of dropped that pastoral word on you and it had good intentions, but here's the thing. Jesus never said that. It's not in the Bible. And the list kind of goes on and on. So for the next few weeks, we're going to tackle those phrases and some other sentiments, not just to correct what Jesus didn't say, but to encounter the life-changing power of what he did say. Because when we misunderstand the words of Jesus, we miss out on the power of Jesus to do his work in our lives. And today, I want to start with this phrase, this sentiment that a lot of people assume or kind of have a sense or an idea that Jesus said or the Bible said or somewhere in there. And it's the phrase, you've gone too far. Or you've sinned too much, or you've made too many mistakes in your life. Some of you may remember this news story from years ago when a 9-year-old boy was moved here with his family. He moved actually from Texas to Tacoma. And he was so frustrated, he was so angry about this change, this move in his life, that get this, he actually stole a car. And he kind of got in a chase with the police, and he wrecked the car, but evaded police custody. Somehow, he made it to the airport. He actually got through security using a discarded boarding pass. Thank you, TSA. He boarded a plane to San Antonio, flew to San Antonio, and was apprehended by the police trying to make a connection to Dallas. And then he was put in juvenile custody, though, as the article noted, for a Texan that was way better than Tacoma. Now, I don't know, Texans are kind of their own people group, right? So you can get an amen for that one if you want. Now, here's the thing. I don't know too many people who've stolen a car and had to outrun by the police and, got onto a plane, all when they were in the 3rd grade. But I know a lot of people who've made a lot of mistakes in their life. People who've got deep regrets in their life. People who have mistakes in their marriage or in their family or in their career. Mistakes with money or mistakes with sex outside of marriage or unfaithfulness in marriage or a secret habit or a double life. People who, for whatever reason, have embraced a life or a lifestyle that goes against the way of life that God has set before us. And here's the thing. In season of my life, that's been me. And maybe that's true for you or some of you or for someone that you know. But here's what's so amazing about Jesus. I love this about Jesus. Jesus never said, well, guess what? You've gone too far. Or you've sinned too much. I can't help you. Or I normally forgive people like you, but you're actually kind of annoying. So I'm just not going to cross that line with you. You've kind of crossed the line. And to prove that he didn't say that, I want to take you back to one of the most well-known stories that Jesus ever told. It's a story that many of you already know, but we all need to hear this one again, I can tell you. So if you have a Bible or Bible app on your phone, I want you to open it up right now to the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15. And we're actually going to be in this chapter this week and next week. So you can kind of bookmark this page. And here's the thing. In order to hear the words of Jesus and not misunderstand what he actually said, we need to do the work of hearing this story in its first century historical context. Like, what did the people back then actually hear when Jesus said these words? So that'll take us a little work as we kind of unpack this as we go. So at times, I may pause and ask you the question, are you with me? And even if you're not, I want you to just emphatically lie and say yes. So are you with me? Yes. Okay, here we go. Luke 15, starting in verse 1. Luke writes this. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. I mean, that could preach on its own. What an amazing picture right here. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. Eats with them. So our story begins not with what Jesus said, but with what the religious leaders in his day were saying about him. And here's the thing, it was not good. This man, in fact, they couldn't even bring themselves to say his name. That's how much he offended them. He disgusted them. This man welcomes sinners and eats with them. Now, here's the deal. If you grew up in church like I did, you've probably heard a lot of stories about the Pharisees, the scribes, the religious leaders, and it's easy to kind of look down on them because they're always kind of grumbling about something. Ever notice how church people can kind of grumble about stuff? I mean, not people here, but other church people can grumble about stuff, right? They're always grumbling about something. But we need to remember these groups of people were well-motivated people. They were well-motivated people. The teachers of the law were like the trained theologians of that day. They were the seminary professors, the ordained pastors, the church elders. And the Pharisees were the kind of devout lay leaders of that day. They were the life group leaders, the consistent volunteers, the longtime believers of that day. And both groups long to be right with God. It's real important that we get this. They long to be right with God, and they long for other people to be right with God. And guess what? Those are really good things, right? Really good things. The problem was, as a professor of mine used to say, it wasn't their desire to be holy. Their problem was their concept of holiness. Let me unpack that. Their concept of holiness was, holiness is all about keeping the rules and the regulations, right? Holiness is all about how you follow the rules. And the more you follow God's rules, the holier you become. And more importantly, to remain holy, rule keepers had to keep their distance, had to kind of keep separate from the rule breakers. Otherwise, they would be kind of contaminated by their behavior or their impurity, which, by the way, is a thought that many people in churches today still have about this concept of holiness defined by rule keeping, which is why, if you think about it, they were so frustrated with Jesus. Because Jesus wasn't keeping his distance from the rule breakers. He was, as Luke said, welcoming them. And it's really interesting. Luke doesn't use the normal word, Greek word for welcome, which is the word dekamai, which just means to sit down and have a conversation with someone. He uses this other Greek word, prosdekamai, which means to welcome someone as a true friend. So Jesus wasn't just having conversations or giving sermons. He was welcoming these tax collectors, these traitors, and these sinners, which was kind of a catch-all word for anyone who was immoral in the eyes of God's law. He was welcoming them as his friends, and he was eating with them. Now, why is that such a big deal? Well, in that culture, sharing a meal was a sacramental act. It was a sign of total acceptance. To share a meal with someone was to accept them as your brother or sister. And if you had an enemy or an opponent, you would never sit down to eat with them unless you were trying to reconcile or make peace with them. Which, by the way, explains why Jesus often described heaven as a picture of a great what? Banquet or feast or meal. It's this picture, this image of reconciliation, of peacemaking. And this is why the religious leaders were so outraged. Jesus wasn't just having conversations with these tax collectors and sinners. He was welcoming them, accepting them just like family. He was sharing meals with them, not after they cleaned up their act, but before they did. And for a religious person in that day, this violated their understanding of holiness. They would have thought, the Pharisees would have thought, no holy God would do what Jesus is doing. Are you with me? That's right. Are you with me? Okay. And so Jesus, I love that, well done. And so Jesus responds by telling them 3 stories, 3 parables. The first about a shepherd and a sheep. The second about a woman and a coin. A shepherd and a lost sheep, a woman and a lost coin. And the third, the story we're going to look at today, is about a father and a lost son. So here's the thing. If you have ever wondered if you've gone too far, sinned too much, crossed the line, here's what Jesus actually said about that. He began this way. Jesus said, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. Now we need to pause because this is a loaded statement, a loaded request. To ask for his share of the estate in that day wasn't just like asking, for a loan or to borrow the car keys. For the son to make this request while his father was still living was like saying, Dad, I'm tired of you. I'm tired of being around you. I'm tired of your attitude. I'm tired of your way of life. I'm tired of how you run this family. I'm ready to live life on my own terms. So I'd rather you just go ahead and die so I can get on with my life my way. That's what's in this statement. In fact, there's a New Testament scholar named Dr. Kenneth Bailey's work I'm indebted to in this message. And he spent most of his life living in the Middle East and having conversations with ordinary people in villages all around the Middle East. And over the course of his life and ministry, he told this story to literally thousands of people. And he asked them the same set of questions. He said, has anyone in your village ever made such a request? Never, they said. Could anyone ever make such a request? Impossible, they said. If anyone ever did, what would happen? His father would become angry and refuse, they said. Why? Because this request means he wants his father to die. That's what's happening in the story. And of course, the shock and surprise of all those listening at this request. I was kind of thinking, what would an example look like in our day? And I once heard someone say, this request would be like a husband telling his wife, honey, I know we've been married for 27 years, but in anticipation of you dying someday, I've already found my next wife and invited her to move on in. Sound okay? Actually, by the way, that's a true story that happened in a friend of mine's family, but that's for another sermon, not for today. But this son's request is that offensive. It's that audacious. It's that disrespectful, and it's that humiliating. But it's important to note here in the story, the son's request he's not actually breaking a rule. He's not actually breaking a rule. In Deuteronomy 21, the law states a second son is entitled of a third of the family wealth. So he's not breaking a rule by asking for this. He's breaking a relationship. And this is really important because when you think about the word sin, and maybe you've heard that word in church or somewhere else in your life, most people go to a list of rules, like sin must be all the rules that people break. Sin at its core is breaking a relationship. It's breaking a relationship. It's saying to God, God, like the son, I want nothing to do with your way of life. I want to go out and do it on my own. And by the way, when we do that, all the rule breaking simply follows. But God is less concerned about the rules and far more concerned about the relationship. And by the way, as we'll see next week, you can keep all the rules and still find yourself very, very lost. But for the father in this story, when the son comes and asks and makes this audacious request, it's humiliating. And by the way, this is an honor-shame culture. One's honor, one's reputation was more important than anything else. And to be shamed or humiliated was worse than death itself. So the only way for the father to salvage his honor, his reputation, would be to punish the son. That's one option. Or to permanently sever the relationship. Basically, there's no other choices he has in order to save face in the village, who, by the way, at this point is gossiping about this whole story. Word has gotten out. Did you hear what that younger son said? And so what's he going to do? Is he going to punish? Is he going to cut him off? Is he going to punish? Is he going to cut him off? In fact, in that day, there was actually a ceremony called a kezezah. Everyone say that out loud. Kezezah. It comes from the Hebrew word for cutting off. And what would happen is if a son was cut off, if a son was kind of banished from his home and ever decided to return home, the villagers from the village elders would come out to meet him at the city gates, break a clay pot at his feet, and say, "You are cut off. You've gone too far. You've sinned too much. You've crossed the line. You are kezezah. You are not welcome here." And then that son would be mocked. He would be scorned. He might even be beaten. So everyone listening to Jesus is thinking, is he going to get punished or banished? Punished or banished? And if he ever returns, kezezah will be waiting for him. So are you with me? So with me here? Instead of doing either of those things, the father does something totally unexpected. As you'll see in the story, time after time, the father is doing something unexpected. Look at what Jesus says next. So the father divided his property between his two sons, meaning he sold a bunch of his assets, turned it into cash, and gave a third to that younger son. Why? I mean, by not punishing or banishing the son, he would suffer the loss of his own reputation in the village. He would live with that public disgrace, which again was worse than death itself. So why do this? Simple. He was willing to do whatever it takes to preserve his relationship with his son. And by the way, that's why God is willing to endure our disobedience, our disrespect, our offenses. That's why he simply doesn't punish or banish. It's so he can remain a father to lost sons and daughters. But in the story, at this point in the story, the son could not see it. He couldn't see the character of his father. And after a scandal like this, it would not be safe for him to stay. So Jesus goes on in the story. Not long after that, the younger son got together all that he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. Now, the reality is we're not told what decisions he makes to squander the wealth, although later in the story we'll find out the older brother has a few sketchy theories about what he was doing with his wealth, but Jesus doesn't say. What he says next is that after he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. Now that phrase, in need, is an important one. It means that he was unable to find work, which means he had no food, he had no friends, he had no place to stay, and no place to go. Famine in the land, starving, no job, no friends, no place. But get this, he doesn't go home. I mean, why? Why not go home? Why not have, at least he got a family back home. Why not go home? Because he knows what he would face if he did. As soon as he arrived at the city gates, the people in the village would come out and declare him, kezezah, you're cut off, you're banished, you've gone too far, you crossed the line. And then he would be mocked and ridiculed and scorned. And by the way, doesn't it make you wonder? Doesn't it make you wonder how so many younger sons and daughters out there don't come back to God, not because of God, but out of fear of what other people might do? Doesn't it make you wonder? And so the younger son doesn't go back. He is willing to starve and endure famine in the far country. In fact, his fear of going home is so great, he resorts to something that no respectable first century Jew would ever do. Look at what happens. Jesus says, so he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country. That means it's a Gentile who sent him into his fields to feed the pigs. So he attaches himself, he kind of throws himself at the mercy of a Gentile who gives him a job that no self-respecting Jew would do. Why? Probably to get rid of him. Probably to say, you go do this. I know you won't because I want you out of my land. I want you out of my life. Because no first century Jew would do a job like this. And then Jesus said, he longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. Meaning he had gone so low, he was such a disgrace that the people around him were willing to let him starve to death. That's how bad off he was. That's how much of a mess he was. That's how bad it got. And now he's got nowhere to turn, nowhere to go. He's lost everything and everyone in his life. He is truly at what they call rock bottom. By the way, have you ever made a mess in your life that you don't know how to clean up? Or a decision you don't know how to get out of? Or a regret that you don't know how to get rid of? You feel like you've just gone too far. There's nothing you can do. There was a woman in my last church who dreamed as a child of growing up to being a famous actress. And then in high school, she started drinking and partying, which eventually evolved to drug abuse and an addiction to alcohol. And eventually, she dropped out of high school and she moved around the country kind of from one acting job to the other, but she couldn't keep work because of her addiction. And eventually, she resorted to living on the streets and working as a prostitute to stay alive. Until one night she found herself balled up in a bathroom stall, a public bathroom stall, nowhere to turn, nowhere to go. She'd lost everything and everyone. At the time, she didn't believe in God. She didn't know anything about God, but she found herself praying 3 simple words: God, help me. God, just help me. And I imagine the younger son had a thought kind of like that in this moment about his father. Look at verse 17. Jesus says, when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired men have food to spare? And here I am, starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father. Notice the son comes to his senses. He realizes something that makes him willing to go home and face the music, face all the consequences. On the one hand, he recognizes his need. He's starving to death, right? But there's something more. He goes home, not just when he realizes the severity of his need, but when he remembers the goodness of his father. How many of my father's men have more food on the table than they can eat? Because why? My father's good. He's loving. He's generous. I remember that's the kind of father he is. And so he says, I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. See, the son, like anyone who's got to go back and face the music, comes up with kind of a confessional speech. You know that speech you plan in your mind when you got to come home and confess the thing you did or what happened at work? You kind of plan it out, script it out so you don't fumble it up. The son comes up with a confessional speech that has 3 parts, okay? Part 1 is his admission of wrong. His admission of wrong. Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. In other words, I was wrong and I know it. I know it now. Part 2 is his awareness of the consequences. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. In other words, I realize I didn't just break some abstract rule. I broke my relationship with you, and I'm not worthy to be your son because of that. And then part 3, real important here, is his request to make up for what he had done. Make me like one of your hired servants. Put me to work so I can pay off my debt. 3 parts: admission of wrong, awareness of consequences, request to make it right. Are you with me? With me? It's really important we get all 3 of those, right? Back to the story. So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, and this is what's so unexpected, his father saw him, meaning he had been watching, he had been waiting, he had been hoping, he had been praying. Maybe this is the day, maybe this is the day, maybe this is the day that my son comes home. His father saw him. And by the way, the father sees you. No matter how far you may feel like you've run or what you've done, the father sees you. And he was filled with compassion for him. Not anger, not resentment, not I told you so, but compassion, empathy, and love. And it says, he ran to his son. I love that detail. The better translation would be, he sprinted or raced to his son, something he had not done in probably over 40 years. And not because he was lazy, it's a cultural thing. In that day, in the first century, adult men did not run. Kids ran, servants ran, but honorable men would not run. Why? Because in order to run, you have to lift up your robe, exposing your dad legs and your jean shorts, and it's kind of embarrassing for everybody to see. Nobody did that. No men would be caught dead running through town. But the father isn't worried about how he looks to other people. He hikes up his robe and he goes sprinting to his son. Why? Not just because he loves him. Not just because he wants to see him. See, the father knows what awaits the son as well. He knows what the son is about to face from all the villagers who are coming out. As soon as they see him at the city gates, they're coming out to throw the clay pot and say, Kezeza, you're cut off. You're not welcome here. So the father races to make sure what? He races to make sure he gets there first. He gets there first. And then the text says, Jesus says, he threw his arms around him and he kissed him. And a better way to translate this verb is he kissed him and he kissed him and he could not stop kissing him. No questions, no critiques, no I told you so, no I knew this would happen. Just the loving embrace of a gracious father. And when he embraced him, get this, when he embraced him, he literally took upon himself the sin and the shame of that broken down, messed up son, so that whatever the scorn or punishment the villagers wanted to do to the son, they must now also do to the father. Have you ever seen love like this? Well, the younger son hasn't. But he's got a plan to make things right. He's got a speech and a plan. So he starts right into his confessional speech. How many parts? 3 parts. The son says to him, it's coming up. I know it's there. Come on. Here it is. The son says, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. And notice the father lets him say part 1. Because it's good, it is right to be able to admit that we're wrong. We need to know, hey, I was wrong. I messed up. I screwed up here. And the father lets him say part 2, I am no longer worthy to be called your son, because it's important for us to understand the consequences of our choices, the consequences of our actions. But the most amazing part of the story, before the son can muster up the words to say part 3, before he can say, make me like one of your hired servants, the father interrupts him. And by the way, this interruption is the gospel. This interruption is what makes Jesus unlike any other religious system or religious way of life where you earn your way back into your status as a son or a daughter. The father interrupts him. He refuses to let his son say, make me a servant. He refuses to hear his request to pay off his debt. Instead, the father starts showering grace upon grace on his life. Look at what he does. He says the phrase, the next slide up there. Throw the next, there it is. Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. And by the way, he would still be in the kind of stench and stink of the pigs and all the work he had done. And the father says, bring the best robe for him. And by the way, the best robe is the father's robe. And put a ring on his finger. That would be a signet ring, which in that day was used to sign contracts and to show authority. Meaning this son who had wasted a third of the family wealth was now given control over the whole estate. Not after he had made things right, but while he's standing in the middle of the street. But the father isn't finished. He says, put sandals on his feet. See, in that day, servants went barefoot. Sons and daughters wore shoes. So the father is saying, even though he's done this disgraceful past, no demotion in status, he's still a son. And then he says, he's not finished, and bring the fatted calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and separate. And by the way, the fattened calf was reserved for the most honored guest. So Jesus, are you saying that this disgraceful, shameful, offensive, no good, lost son is the most honored guest in the village? Absolutely. Really? I mean, this is foolish. This is ludicrous. But guess what? The Father still isn't finished. He has one more word to say with all the village watching. He looks into the eyes of his son and he says these words, "For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." So they began to celebrate. And I want you to see this phrase right here, this son of mine. This son of mine, this son of mine. You see, in the Father's eyes, the prodigal was never a disgrace or a failure or a sinner. You know what he was? He was his Father's son. The son just couldn't see it. And here's the thing, the same is true for you, and the same is true for me. No matter how messy your life is, no matter how broken you feel, or how far you've fallen short, in God's eyes, you're not a screw-up, you're not an adulterer, you're not a cheat, you're not a liar, you're not an addict. You are a son, you are a daughter. You just can't see it anymore. And so he comes out and declares him still a son. This good father who isn't waiting for the son to come back and make everything right. He's already come out of the house to embrace him and make it right and restore him. And even when you think everyone's going to point the finger and, cast judgment, even if you feel cut off from church or friends or family, even if you feel so shamed or disgraced, the Father's words are, "This son of mine or this daughter of mine is home." That woman from my last church who prayed that prayer in that bathroom stall thought her life was over. But as soon as she prayed, "God help me," God did. Later that same day, she met someone who was in recovery from alcoholism. And he took her to her very first recovery group where she eventually found Jesus. And Jesus was nothing like she thought. She discovered that Jesus loved her and delighted in her and wanted to be with her in spite of her past. More importantly, she discovered that no matter what she had done, no matter how messy life was, she never stopped being her Father's daughter. She just couldn't see it until that moment in her life. And today she's helping people who've lived through similar experiences come home to the grace of this good Father. And I still remember the day where I met her. And the joy in her eyes was hard to describe. It was the joy of being embraced as a daughter. It was the joy of unconditional love. It was the joy of being accepted, not after she made things right, but because God had already made things right on the cross when Jesus took on the punishment, the kezeza that we deserve so we could be sons and daughters again. Which, by the way, friends, this is why those tax collectors and sinners were gathered around to hear Jesus. It's not because they wanted to be near him. It's because they realized he wanted to be near them. And that changes everything. And here's the good news for you. He wants to be near you as well. He wants to be in your life, no matter how far you've gone or what line you've crossed. Maybe you've really messed up. Maybe you've made decisions that you regret. Maybe you've cheated. Maybe you've been sleeping around. Maybe you've been lusting online, or maybe you've been living a double life of some kind. Sometimes people who've been in church a long, long time have a secret life or a secret struggle that no one else knows about. That makes coming home even harder, doesn't it? But here's the good news. It is safe to come home. Friends, it is safe to come home. With this Father, it is safe to come home. God has already done the work. He's already paid the price. And here's the thing. Nobody earns their way home. They just have to come home. You just have to choose, make a decision, a willful decision to come home. And he's waiting for you. He's ready for you. He's been watching for you. And he's come running out of the house in the person of Jesus for you. All you have to do is come home and let him love you. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine, this daughter of mine was lost and is found. At least that's what Jesus actually said. So I want to give you a moment right now to take that step and come home to the Father in your life. So if you would, for a moment, just bow your heads and close your eyes. Those of you online, you can do this wherever you're watching from. Bow your heads, close your eyes, put away the distractions. And right now, I'm talking to those of you who don't know if you've ever taken this step to come home to your Heavenly Father. And I want you to know that the Father is waiting. He's ready. He's watching, and He sees you right now. And He's come out of His house in the person of Jesus to take on the punishment that we deserve, that you deserve for all of those sins, for all the mistakes, for all the offenses, onto Himself on your behalf. You don't have to do anything other than receive this. And so right now, if you want to say this in your heart to Jesus, you could say, Jesus, I have sinned against you and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son or your daughter. I want to receive your forgiveness and invite you into my life right now. You can tell Him, Jesus, I just want to come home. Just simple words. And He's not asking for you to make any promises or pay things back. He's already declared you a son or a daughter, and He wants to celebrate with you right now. And because this decision can change everything in your life, if that's your prayer, I want to ask you to do something right now with all the eyes closed, nobody's watching. I want you to pull out your phone and open your message app. I see some of you doing that right now. And I want you to text the word my faith, all one word, my faith, to 97000. Just text that right now. I see several phones coming out. No one else has to know. This is not just a way to mark the moment. We want to be able to walk with you in this season. My faith, 97000. Make the decision. It's safe to come home. And Jesus, we are so grateful that you made a way for all of us to be with you, to come home to you by going to the cross and giving your life for us, to take on the kezezah for us. Jesus, thank you that we can never go too far to come running back to your arms. Embrace us, love us, receive us as we receive you right now. And we pray this in your name. And everybody said, amen.
Okay, let's all stand and sing together. Thank God for His amazing love for us.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so kind to me. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found. Leaves 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, When I was your foe, still your love fought me. You have been so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. Yes, you did, Jesus. You have been so kind to me. Come on, let's sing these words out. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Church, thank you guys so much again for joining us here at Northshore Online. If you made a first-time decision to follow Jesus today, we just want to say congratulations, and we would love to walk through that with you. So you can text My Faith to 97,000. Let us know in the chat, or you can head over to northshore.church, click on that message bubble, and send us a message. Again, just don't let this moment, this opportunity pass. We'd love to connect with you.
Yeah, and thank you again for joining us. We can't wait to see you back here next week at Northshore Online. We'll see you then.